This is Richard back at you. 48 degrees this morning. Guys, it's cold here in Amarillo, let me tell you. I think it was 76 yesterday morning. I'm telling you, it's really, when it changes here, it changes quick. When the fair comes to town, you might as well hang it up that week. It's going to get cold. We got Rodney's Lincoln Town Car in the house. FIOD tranny, cable operated style. Like I said, it's an 87 Lincoln Town Car. Hasn't been moved since 93, right, Teresa?
Right.
Been sitting all this time, and he wanted to get in here and get it fixed. I believe it will not shift out of first gear into second. Is that right, Teresa?
Right. He thought he was going to get in and I guess and drive it, and it's been sitting way too long.
Just sitting way too long. Well, it's pretty tough to get out. I mean, definitely. Some of the bolts were pretty tight and rusted solid and stuff, and we had to get a lot of WD-40 and stuff like that on to get them loose. Even this case bolt right here for the speedometer right here, this bolt here is a 7/16 socket style. I mean, we could barely get it. I took it out with the wrench because if I'd have took it out with an impactor or something, it'd have twisted it right off. You can see the rust right through here a little bit even. So I kind of worked a little bit and got it working and then took it out. So if not, it would have twisted it right off. Now we're going to get this tail housing off real quick first. Get some of this stuff out of the way. It's a really nice car.
Which we showed in our earlier video.
Mm-hmm. Yep. When he gets done, it's going to be nice. That's what's cool about these old cars coming back. Everybody restoring them and stuff and making them look really neat. Now this is some type of identification tag. You have to clean it up and look at the numbers on there and see what it says, but
yeah,
you know, we don't ever use that for anything.
No, all they want to know is what your VIN number is.
Yes. I wasn't going to, Trent told me not to take this ground strap off because he couldn't get the bolt to move, so.
Why is that on there?
I mean, it really doesn't have, I mean, it's, the neutral safety switch might have a ground in it or something, but other than that, I don't know. Unless it's for the engine, transmission type deal. Normally you got enough grounds on your motor to cover that, but back in the days, they probably put one at the bumper. You know, who knows? The car's so long. And we have a drive shaft seal right here to seal your yoke. Just like your 4L60Es and your 400 trannies have them on there too. Your 4L60Es, they're in a canister type deal. They're not physically on the shaft. So, now here's our governor, guys. This is a very, very important piece right here. Now this is kind of like, you know, your 350 has one on the side, your 400 has one on the side, your 700 has one on the side. A lot of them have, the earlier style have governors that, okay, this, if it sticks, it won't take off in first gear, take off in second gear. It does all kinds of crazy stuff here. Now, let me get this off and show you a little bit about this. Now this governor, the whole body will go on two different ways, but one way is the wrong way. And this here will bolt on two different ways to the body. So you gotta be really careful on this here. Now, you can see here, your bolt holes are on this side, your feed holes are on the inside. So when you look at this, you got a feed hole on this side, a feed hole on this side. So you naturally would put it on just like that. There's no feed hole here, so you wouldn't put it on like that to match this and this one. You'd match this one and this one. So it'd go back on there like that. Now you want to definitely clean this up really good. The little groove right here goes to the outside. You notice it's hollow here. This pin goes up inside it kind of like that. Gives you an idea how it works. You want to clean that really good. There's a filter right here. Some overhaul kits come with them, some of them don't. You want to make sure you put that back in there because that keeps any trash getting inside this governor. If you leave it out, it could take initial hit on fire up, wash when the tranny fluid washes the trash you missed in the tranny. Anything like that can stick this thing, so you definitely want to put that filter back in there. Okay. I knew that bolt went somewhere. Okay, now the next thing I want to show you on this governor is these two holes go forward. This thing will go on any direction. Find my snap ring groove here. Take the snap ring off. Okay. I'm going to slide this back. First of all, this won't turn, only with the shaft. There's a metal check ball in a groove right here that is keeping that on there. Oops, I got my glove. Right there. See, if I take a magnet, that'll come right out. Okay, but what I'm going to show you is, turn this back over. These two holes are on the far side of that shaft. These holes are on the inner side of that. You could put that on this way, and now you just block these two holes off right here. Real easy to do. So you want to make sure you line these holes up, put your check ball back in, and then slide it back on. And another thing, guys, I've seen guys do it, excuse me, they forget that check ball's in there like that because it'll set in there the whole time you're taking this tranny apart. And then they turn this tranny around and go to shove the shaft that direction, and they forgot to take that check ball out. So there's 3 sealing rings back right in here. If you drive this shaft forward with that check ball in there, you destroyed the case. There's no repair for it. I mean, you're done. So you always want to make sure you pull that check ball out. Set it to the side. Okay. Now, this tranny here is a TV operated tranny. It's just like a 700 transmission, a 4L60 tranny. It has to have this cable up and functioning with the carburetor. You push the gas pedal down, it pulls the cable forward. You let the gas pedal back, it lets the cable come back, or the lever come back. It has to work just like that. If you leave that off and you try to drive this tranny will fail within 50 miles, depending on how much throttle you give it. It'll take out third gear instantly. Because when I get in here, I'm going to show you third gear clutch is only about that big around. Little bitty, they're back here in the back of the case. So this has to be hooked up and adjusted just like a 700 tranny. This controls shift feel and shift timing, how early and how late it shifts. So now if you look here, you can see this converter's hitting on the crankshaft bolts. That's not saying that it has a bad flywheel. That's not saying there's anything wrong with this torque converter. Back in the day and today now, this is how they come in the door, every one of them. If I sent this torque converter off and had it rebuilt, it would come back looking just like that. It doesn't matter. But if you want to get away from it, what we do is we'll come in here and put about a 20 thousandths washer right here on each stud. Right here. And then when we stick the transmission up in there, we want to make sure this torque converter still pops up at about 1/8 of an inch or so forward up to the flywheel. You don't want to put no big old thick washer in here and have it not pop up to the flywheel. Then you don't have no the clearance between your converter hub and your gears and stuff will be wrong. So, but just a thin one, 20 thousandths, something here on there on all 4, glue them on, put the tranny in, pop the torque converter forward, and that'll keep that from touching right there. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, believe it or not, we had a Bulletin though that I don't think they come in cracked right here, but they might have come in cracked by the hub. So, but if you buy one, I mean, a rebuilt one especially, they're all going to be looking like that.
Oh my gosh.
Now you notice here, look at this. See this shaft coming out with that converter?
And that stinks.
That's your third gear clutch shaft, and what I call like a lockup direct drive. So when this tranny goes into third gear, it goes into lockup and third gear at the same time because your third gear input shaft is physically locked to the torque converter. See, it splines in. Now this shaft here goes all the way to the back of the tranny and splines into your third gear clutch back here. So that's how they get a 1-to-1 ratio out of this early design. That's how this car got 30 miles to the gallon or better back in 87. So, but that's how they did it.
That's crazy.
Just locked solid to the back of the hub. It splines in back here, right in here, and now it's locked solid to the motor when it goes to third gear. Pretty simple. Other than that, we never really seen hub wear or anything like that. I mean, it looks really good. Now these do have drains. You can take that plug out there and drain it.
That's some thick fluid there, Richard.
That is some thick fluid. Right here, and then you can turn it over and it'll just pour out. Not all converters have drains. I wish they all did. So you can just drain that right out of there. Like I say, we're collecting all of our oil right now. Winter's coming and we need about 8 barrels, 55-gallon drums to get this shop through the winter through our clean burn heating system. So that's coming. Ooh, I hate winter. But we have a warm shop though. That's what's good about it. A really warm shop. Now we got our check ball out here on the output shaft. You always want to check that for sure. Because you bump it one time. I mean, one time you go, oh, I didn't take that ball out. Now I just ruined my case. Now you can see here this pan is very dirty. Ooh, it's got a smell to it like you would not believe.
It's bad. What's the magnet in this one?
These don't really come out with a magnet. They never did. I mean, they come with a little plug in the pan that they knock through the dipstick hole when they set on the shelf. But other than that, they never did. No. Yeah, I'm telling you, this thing smells good. Excuse me. We've seen a lot of this on these trannies here. This bolt right here holds the filter on 2, and this is your 4th gear shift valve right here. If you service this transmission and you tighten this bolt down too tight, you'll stop that 4th gear shift valve from moving, and now you don't have 4th gear after a service. That was a common problem with people servicing. We'd see it when they come in the door. They say, all I did was service, I had no 4th gear, and we already knew what they did. Because they used the impact on that bolt right there, probably, and tighten it down. This is a little gasket here too that comes with your filter. You have to put that on there. So your overhaul kit will come with it. This old tranny has a really good smell to it. Now also I want to show you this right here. This is so critical on this tranny, on survival, and how your TV linkage physically works. Do you see this little spring right here? This is your TV valve moving. Do you see that spring? That spring right here, if I take and, it's kind of weird, it's on here. It's right here. See it right here, Teresa? It's hooked here, and it's hooked right here, and then it goes right here.
Okay.
You can take your finger and unhook it and let it flop down. See, now it's gone. But I put my finger in here and lift it up, and then I hook it right back on that valve body plate, see? But that controls this lever to make sure it always comes back when you let off the gas. If you leave that spring off right there, when you let off the gas, that lever could stay right there on its own, and next thing you know, it doesn't want to take off in the right gear. Harsh downshifts, all that kinds of stuff. Something on something so simple is just clipping that spring back. Because see when I let go? Now there is a spring in here too, but this one has to be hooked up and going. It just makes it come back instantly. So, pretty simple.
Enough?
Simple enough. And we have our detent spring here, our shifter lever. Now to change your shifter seal and stuff like that, you have to get that pin out. So never wash this case with that pin in there and expect to ever get it out again. So you work on it and work on it, work on it while this case is cold and dirty, and get that pin out. So if you put it in the parts washer and then try to get it out, you're going to work on it a while. Okay. We'll get these bolts out. Now this bolt here and this one here is your alignment bolt on this valve body. These two here, they usually have a collar on them. Unless I don't think somebody's been in here and moved them. Let me look here, see if somebody's moved them around. Yeah, no, that ain't the collar. This is just the long bolt here that goes here. The short ones usually have a collar on them to align the valve body, but this could be so early they didn't do that in the day. You know, they started it a month later or something. When you go to tighten this valve body down here and torque it back, make sure you start from the middle and go out. And then this valve body torques at hardly nothing. I mean, maybe 6-inch pounds, 5-inch pounds. I'd have to look again too. It's been a few days since I've done one just to verify my numbers. So, and this valve body has different size bolts all over it, so you want to check them. So you want to be careful before you just start running them in there. Trying to go through this one pretty fast. This thing here, guys, this thing has a smell from, like it's got a lot of additive in it, you know, alcohol type, open your sinuses like type stuff.
Makes you dizzy.
Yes, I mean, it's that strong. That's why that door's open. Now this valve body here, of course, there's 2 different bolts. You have your 8mm there, and then you'll have your 10mm here, little short ones. We put a transgo kit in every one of these. Every one we do. And it might be an SK kit, depending right now what they have, because, I mean, we love those guys too. I mean, they make some awesome stuff. Now you have these plates here. This one here has 5 bolts. This one here has 4. When you get into some of the earlier models, or excuse me, the later models, or even the earlier models, they changed these up a little bit where they left one of these off that wasn't there no more. So it's on there good. That main thing up there. Okay. You see this has 4 bolts and it has to turn a certain direction. Same way here, same way here. And like I say, some of them you'll get in and won't have this one. Won't even be no bolts for it. Now your gaskets are different. You can see they got the big holes. This one here's just the plates on it. But you have these blow-off valves right here. They look like little springs and cups. Right here. If you ever lose one, I've made a bolt out of them. Took a bolt and grinded it and made the head of the bolt work. It worked really good. So, but these are easy to lose. You notice this one has a long shank. This one has no shank. So you want to remember which side you took that out of. Now, you can see here how bad this gasket, whoever built, I don't know if this is factory stuff or what, but look how far this gasket's off right here. How far and it's still stuck. I haven't pulled on it yet.
Yeah.
See here?
Yep.
They didn't even get that on there straight. That could be why it burnt. I think he said it on a second, so.
No, it's stuck in second.
Oh, it's stuck in second. But as bad as this smells, it could be stuck in anything. I was going to get down here to these check balls, because this is real important too on this tranny. There's one check ball that's different size, and you do not want to get it mixed up or put a small one in there. If you do, you're going to have problems. I like to keep my gaskets, try not to tear them up, that way I can match them, just to make sure that when my kit comes to the right ones. Now you can see here, we have check ball here, 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 and then we have this big fat orange one. Right there, get it out of there. But guys, if you put a small one in there, that small one will walk out of that hole and go over in here. And you can't do that, the tranny will not work. But if you come over here and notice, there is no check ball here. There has never been a check ball there. But if you come over and look at the plate, you'd say, Richard, there's a check ball that goes there. It has a trough for it, it has everything for it. It's got a hole beside it. Well, you'd think that you'd put a check ball in there. It looks just like this one here. A little different because of the gasket, but I'm just saying. You'd think a check ball would go there, but a check ball doesn't go there. Okay. Now your Transgo kit's going to tell you to drill some holes and change some springs and stuff like that. Just read the instructions really good. These valve bodies ain't scary. Just clean them good and just make sure you torque them right. That's the main key on these is torquing them. Oops, let me get my... Now we have our overdrive accumulator right up here on top. Some of these later versions didn't even have this. They did away with it. The valve body plate will be different. The case will look the same. It'll even have your holes right here for it. But the valve body plate's different. So let's see if I can get this in. I might have to get my other small pair. Yeah, let me get that up here. And you stay right there. Get them out of these. Here's some new ones I bought. They're too big too. Let me find my. I go back to my old school ones if I can find them. There they are. Oh, faithful. I've had these like 40 years. I won't throw them away just because of this reason. Come on, get out of there. Okay, there we go. Now, some of these will have springs and some won't. Some you can just pick this up and there's no spring in there. Look at that. Let me pull it out. See? And then some of them will have a little wiry spring. I mean, it just barely holds the piston away from each other. Because when the tranny's turned up normally, it'll set down like that without that spring. With the spring in it, it'll always stay flush. So, like I said, the later versions, they did totally away from that there. And then we have our third gear accumulator right here. Now your shift kit's going to come with some crazy stuff here too. Probably a different spring. Plastic's okay. Not a problem. Put your new Teflon rings on there. Your shift kit could come with a spacer that goes down in here, a different spring. Anything like that. Just read the instructions really well. Okay. Now this is your overdrive servo here that applies your overdrive band. Now you notice we have a B. B is, I believe, is the biggest one that you can get unless you go to an aftermarket for your overdrive servo apply on your overdrive band. Now they make a C, a D. If I went out to my trailer out here, I could pull all that in here and show you. Let me get this out of here. Come on. Normally the spring's strong enough to push that out of there, but this thing's been setting a while. Now the B means the size of the piston here, the diameter from here to here. You can see it even says it on here. This pin goes to and applies your overdrive band. Now they make an aftermarket that even the piston's even bigger. But you got to be careful changing these pistons up, guys, because we see bind ups, harsh shifting. I like to leave the big servo in there. If I have a tranny like that it has a B or a C or something in it, and I'll put it in there, but I don't like going to the great big one. Now here's your spring right here that I was telling you about for your TV. Sits on that shaft right there. You can see how it hooks on it, and then you come up, put it on the valve body case or the plate. We're going to get in here and get our reverse servo out of here real quick. There we go. Guys, if you could smell this transmission, you'd be going, oh, Richard, Teresa, how you standing there? Because I think this guy used the whole bottle. The whole bottle of additive in this thing. Now, believe it or not, you can put additive in these things and swell these seals up so big and lose gears. I'm telling you, it'll stop the pistons from applying the clutches and all types of stuff. hopefully we'll get in here and that's an issue, and I'll be able to show you what additive does and too much additive, long-term additive. You know, additive's made kind of put it in there and run it for a few days and get it out of there to do a service after the fact. But you can see all the mud in here. I mean, it's just nasty. You always want to check these, make sure these are soft. Even the cover, make sure it's soft. It's definitely going to be soft now with all this additive in there, because I think I'm soft. I mean, huh?
Stinky.
This thing's, yeah, it's smart.
I mean, every time you move the fluid and stuff around or pull something out, it's just like
Yeah.
everywhere.
You wouldn't want a fan blowing on you right now. The pump on these trannies are usually pretty good. They do have wear issues in places though, but you know, normally they're pretty good. But we'll see how this one is with 76,000 miles.
I bet that's going to be stuck.
Could be. I couldn't even tell if it moved. Yeah, this old pump O-ring can swell up really big too. Yeah, it's coming out. See if I can turn this a little bit in here maybe. Get that. There we go. Come on. That's what we run into, guys. It's terrible. And I don't think this is going to grab on the other side at all. It's like the threads are messed up. Just slides in. Now this was leaking out of the front, wasn't it? Was it this one? No, it's the Ford pickup that's leaking out of the front, huh? Yeah, that's not going to help, darn it.
Now, can you not put those in different holes? You have to keep putting them in the ones.
Yeah, they only give you 2 options.
Okay.
Yeah, that hole there's messed up.
Okay.
Um,
Well, it's not good, so I thought I would ask that question.
yeah, let me put my glasses on and see if I can get in here a little bit better, see what's going on. Sometimes you just can't give up.
Turn this fan behind me,
Okay.
because the smell is just killing me.
You know, just being able to take it apart, and then something like this can turn a hour-long video in, or a 30-minute video into an hour. But we want to look at our intermediate apply piston right here. This is what applies second gear. And we want to look and see if it won't come out, if it's locked down, or nope, not locked down. Okay. Now, if you notice too, this piston here has a hole in it. Right right here. You always want to make sure when you put that in, you want the hole to the top. Like that. You don't want it down here where it can aerate fluid at the bottom. So, all the seals look good. Well, look, here comes your additive, guys. Look at it trying to jump off. See how I pulled it out of there? Now, I bet this thing don't have third gear. See how that's big, too big now? If you ever take that off and try to put it back on, it'll never go back on. You'll never get it.
Slinging it around.
Hey, that's what additive does. Same way with this seal here, it'll be way too big to go back in, but no. Now, this retaining spring right here has some little locks right here. When you put this back on, you want to make sure you bend them where they lock onto this lip right here. That's what holds that in there. It's simple. We have our bolts here. Now on this pump stator, guys, this is your cooler line flow right here. See this spring right here? And there's a ball right here in here. When you blow through this stator, you need to have air come out this hole right here. I'm gonna blow in this stator to see if any oil comes out of that hole right there. Seriously, just watch it and see. You ready? Okay, you see that, guys? And you can watch that spring move. I have to seal this in too. If not, I can't pressurize the stator. But if you watch that spring right there, you'll see it move. See that? If you rebuild this tranny and that doesn't move, that means you have no cooler line flow. And you'll burn the planetary gears plumb out of the back of this right here. Out the back of the tranny. So that's a must. You have to know that. Now you get new rings in your kit here. Nothing special there, new bushings. Your pump, you want to look at it. Normally we'll see wear here. This is common wear. We'll see right here. The converter was going in the pump really nice and deep. The only place we'll see wear normally on these is in the side of this pump body. And this is going to be one of the best ones I've ever seen in my life. It is. I swear, normally it will be real light gray color over here where it tried to push the gear sideways. And that's a common problem with these. So we can put a new set of pump gears in this and we'll have a really nice pump. Now we'll get our second gear clutches out of here. And our overdrive band. Now you can see that thing was toast. Now that's where probably a lot of our trash come in, stuff like that in the pan. Now if your overdrive band don't work, you're still going to have second, you're still going to have third. It doesn't matter, you're just not going to have fourth. Because right here is your second gear clutches right here. Now if this sprag right here was blowed up or something, then you wouldn't have second. See, it spins, locks. So that second gear sprag's good. You look at your second gear clutches, not brand new, but for 70,000 miles, they were still going down the road. See, but our overdrive band was not. Now, you want to look in here, make sure your drum's good, because you're going to be putting another band in here. You can't put a bigger band. They don't make anything. An AODE band will not fit across this drum. I've tried it every form, fashion, or way and tried to put an AODE band on here because it's twice as wide. You can't swap the drums. You can't do none of that type of stuff. So, now this drum here, later on they put a bearing right here. And they cut this drum. So when you go swapping parts, you better check the depth from here to here with a mic to check that depth when you replace your drum. See, because they made two different drums right here. They went to a bearing style and a washer style. Forward drum was the same. It didn't matter. It's just here. Now we got our forward clutches here. Physically move. See, we have our forward clutches here. The forward clutch is going to have a wave in it. It's going to be the only one that's going to have a wave in it. Let me get this piston out of here real quick and see if this seal here tries to jump off of the piston too from the additive.
You want me to come over there?
You can stay right there. It'll just take me a second to get this apart real quick. You can see this drum here has a really big spring in it. Pushes the piston back off. See if I can get this out. There we go. See if this seal here is going to try to pop off when I move it. Yep, it's starting to get, it's loose too, see it? Hadn't affected this one as bad as the other one. But still, try to get that back in that drum. We actually have special tools to install these pistons once you take them out. And then we have our reverse clutch here. Now sometimes this might be a 3 clutch. So the higher the groove in the drum is going to be in the thickness of the plate. So it matters how you can change. You can put a 3, if you had a 3 drum, you could put a 4 drum in here as long as it's a washer style or a bearing style. You don't want to mess up on that part of it. And of course this bevel plate right here, most of them that come in is already broke. Let's see if I can, this little snap ring here usually pretty tough to get out. It's the way it's designed, it's under these. Yeah, I'm gonna wait, I don't want to hurt myself just because I'm trying to do it in the camera. But you always want to check your sprag here. Slide that retainer right there over and get that off there. Now you want to put a new one here because these are really bad about expanding. And this one here probably is already right here. Normally these are probably a little bit closer together. They're bad about spinning this snap ring off. And why it does it is because this overdrive drum, this band doesn't stop this drum from spinning, and this drum spins up when it shifts to overdrive. So, you know, look in here, make sure your outer race looks really good for your sprag. Scotch-Brite it up. Really don't see many failures in this area. Now we will see some melting of the sprag here sometimes. Pretty neat looking. So you don't have to worry about this. Always put your new bushings in. And you can Scotch-Brite down in here where your sealing rings run. 180 grit here where your band's going to come on. And new bushings and seals. Pretty simple. And then we have our forward hub here that slides into your clutches. Now you have an upside down bearing right here too that has a lip on it right here, so you want to make sure you put your bushing. This bushing is really far down in there. That's way farther than it needs to be. But you want to make sure you put it far enough down in there that it doesn't, this bearing doesn't set on it. But that's way far down in there. You can see the lube hole right here. But that bushing should be probably about right in here. Spread them out a little bit, give it some strength instead of piling it right on top. Look at your splines right here too for any type of wear. This is where your sun gear splines in too. Same way here, look for any type of wear on your sun gear. Always replace your bushings. Now this snap ring right here, if you look at it, it's got a curl on the end of it right here and right here. You always want to make sure you put these two ends in an opened area. You don't want to try to stick it up under this area right here because it'll pop right out. Now also there's a case saver in here. It's not a case saver, it's kind of an anti-clock spring just like your 4L60Es have. Let me get my flashlight and I'll show you it real quick. See it right here? And when I go to pop this shaft out, that thing's going to jump out of there. Sometimes it's hung in the case right here, but most times it'll jump right out of there.
Thanks for the warning.
Yep. We got our check ball out from our output shaft right here, so we're not going to ruin the case when we shove this out of there. If that check ball would have been in there just then, you would have ruined the case. So you want to make sure you get that out of there. Okay, we have a bearing down in here instead of a thrush washer at the bottom of the case. Get that out of there. You can see it right here. It's got a race on the bottom, bearing on top, and then your physical housing or your rear support here is your race. Now, here's your anti-clunk spring. And then here's your reverse band. Very seldom ever see issues with these bands. This is just a dinosaur because it looks that way. But these bands are tough, 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 guys. They're like the original 400 style band. I mean, tough, 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 tough band. Now we do have a snap ring down in here that your band sets on. Pretty simple. Now, what we're going to show you here real quick, this is your support for your lower planetary assembly. You will get wear where your, was that it right there? I don't have my glasses on. I might have to put my glasses back on real quick. You can see here, where's my glasses? Let me get them. I'm looking at the right spot because this has very little wear. Normally there's so much wear on it we have to TIG weld it up and fix it. But there's just very little wear right here. Normally there's a big old groove right in here and we have to weld this up and reshape it so our anti-clunk spring works again. So you want to Scotch-Brite your inner race for your sprag right here. Change your bushing. Now when you get in here, guys, this bushing right here on the bottom has to be stepped down in there just like this one is. This one's too far actually, and I'll show you why, because we have a stepped bearing down in here. But you can see this bushing's already melted out. Okay, now we're going to get down in here and look at our third gear clutch and stuff down in here, because this is where our failure is, another part of our failure. Set this here real quick. Now you can see our sealing rings I was talking about in the back of the case. If you run that check ball through the case, you're going to ruin that case where these rings will be running. And it don't take but one time of jamming it, boom, and you realize, oh, what'd I do? So pretty simple. Got some Teflon rings here for your third gear clutch apply for your drum here. Got your ring gear here for your planet. Now you can see here, this is already looking bad. It's already looking really burnt up. It's not going to come apart. You can see here, your drum's all destroyed down in here where your bushing runs for your planet, because this sets down in here, and this hub locks on these splines right there. This is all cooked up here.
Yeah, this smell is worse than it was.
Yeah. Get these clutches off here. You can see this locks on your planet like that. Okay. But if you look here, where that bushing runs, it's just destroyed this right here. And believe me guys, they make different ones of these because of these lube holes right here. They've changed locations on these lube holes here and the way this is chamfered right here. So you got to be really careful when you go buy a drum and try to just throw it in this tranny. And also down in here, your shaft, remember me talking about that splat hooks into your torque converter, it locks into this drum and this locks into the torque converter. And now see, it's locked direct drive, it's got to turn the torque converter. So these splines are bad about stripping down in here. And what also, if you look right here, get this stuff here. Okay. If this right here starts wearing, see how these splines are almost gone right here from here to here? Right there. Plus, these splines in the center are almost totally stripped for this shaft. But what happens is, this drum sets on here like this, okay? Do you see this lube circuit hole right here? This drum sets on here like this. Well, when this drum wears, it lets this shaft slide down in there, and when it gets so far, this shaft will touch right here and plug your lube circuit hole off. And once it does that, your planets are gone. So you really got to watch that. Now, even when we put a new drum in here, we'll take and grind about 1/8 of an inch or so off the end of this. That way it can never ever happen again. So that's a must right there. You see your loop circuit. And this is so wore out, that shaft has dropped 1/4 of an inch down inside that drum right there. See on the inside. So, of course, there's a seal in here that's going to be all chewed up and swollen and all that type of stuff. So, this tranny's in bad shape. Here we have our 3rd gear clutch, totally metal to metal. Now, depending on the drum too, guys, snap ring groove height is on how many clutches I can get in here. So, you want to find a drum that's got the ring all the way to the top, because if not, you're going to put less clutches in the drum, and now we're putting it in a big old Lincoln Town Car that needs 10 clutches in this drum instead of the 6 or whatever it has in there. So we would definitely want to pay attention to this area, try to upgrade that, because that is a really weak spot on this tranny right here. Guys, it was Ford day. Thank God it's something different than Dodges. I mean, that's all we've been doing this week, it seems like last few weeks. But we want to thank you again, Teresa, for recording. Guys, don't forget to go subscribe, push that like button. We have a ton of show to coming. Thank you. Have a good day.